Well, welcome to our first employee panel where we'll be discussing diversity and inclusion topics. Today we have 4 city employees: Randy Weinberg, Shaylon Brown, Maria Dennison, and Micah Burton. They'll be our panel today as we discuss some questions. We'll throw out some questions to the panel. They'll provide their responses. We hope that this will be a continuing series and we'll invite more employees to be part of these discussions. We want to be able to continue these important discussions and engage conversation with our employees. So I want to thank our panel members for being with us today, and we'll just get down right to it. First question. In your guys' opinion, what does it mean to be a racist? I see the wheels turning. Micah, why don't you start us off here? In your opinion, what does it mean to be a racist?
I think for me, a racist is anyone who just kind of oppresses or has a prejudice against someone of a different race or different color. Any type of policies that oppress a certain group of people is to me is what I consider as racist. Pretty much not given the same opportunity to everyone is pretty much in it for me is what racist means to me.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
I would say for me, being a racist can be simply just defined just already having a preconceived notion of someone based off of their skin, based off of their lifestyle, without even getting to know that person. And I believe it's inherent, and some people don't even know that they are racist. The dialogue that they use, the statements that they make, that is what a racist really is to me. I think it's really cut and dry and simple. It shouldn't be this long, drawn out explanation. Either you are or you aren't. So
I agree with that. I think for me, it's always almost like the video. It's always been for me a matter of the heart. So I've never understood when people say someone was raised that way or it's the way, they try to explain it away based on the way they grew up, because I just can't comprehend that. I agree. It's everything else, I feel like they said, but I just don't understand. It's that rationale, I guess you would say.
And I agree with everyone that has gone before me. I think the only thing that's missing is that it's that feeling and that notion of superiority, which causes that behavior.
And Randy, something that you said sparked something in my mind that is there unconscious racism versus conscious racism? Are there things that people say or do, or that's how they were brought up, that they're basically unaware that what they're doing or saying is racist, versus those who are overtly, actively racist?
You have to make a very important point there, John. I think I'm from South Georgia, so I've seen, and still is today in my hometown, just so many racist things that goes on. And but I think about a quote that I always would hear when I was growing up in school. They will always say the spots with the spots and the stripes with the stripes. So it was always understood where you only date your race, or you only hang out with the people of your race, and it's always been that line drawn, especially where I was from. So that's what I heard growing up, and that's what was understood where I was from. So it was like, wow, then it was normal when you heard it whenever you was younger, but now when I think about it, it's like, wow. It was just bold front and center. So yeah, that was something, that sparked that thought there.
And John, also, when I was working with the National Coalition Building Institute back in the 90s, one of the things that we used to say, so I don't want to date myself, is that it's those things that are on your tape. And today I've heard of one of my good friends said it's on your Spotify. A lot of times we pick these things up just by the environments in which we live, breathe, and thrive. And sometimes we don't know. And that's why I think the unconscious racism becomes conscious when we act on those things. So it's not just having a sense of superiority. I always think I'm smarter than my children, but that's not a sense of superiority. That's simply I've lived longer than them. It's the moment that I begin to put them down and treat them differently because of whatever that barrier is that turns it into racism when we're dealing with race.
I like that thought. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, and it kind of reminds me, I love the movie 42, and there's a scene with a father and a son in the stands. They're excited to see Pee Wee Reese, and the kid starts to hear his dad hurling the insults at Jackie, and so he in turn starts to hurl insults at him and use that foul language towards him. That you say you pick it up along the line. So let's switch gears. What does it mean to be an anti-racist? This is a term that a lot of people are using nowadays. Not racist, but anti-racist. What does that mean to you? Maria, you have a thought?
Well, you know what? I've never heard that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm kind of taken back because I've not heard that.
It's actually there's a book called How to Be an Anti-Racist, and the basic premise is a lot of people defend their actions by saying, hey, I'm not racist. And the premise of the book is saying it's not enough to be not racist. You have to be actively anti-racist. The person who is not a racist might not agree with the behavior that's happening, but neither will they stand up for what is right.
Right.
And actively fight that.
Right, and to me, when you're saying anti-racist, I think of two things. Just kind of how you said you have the anti-racist who can verbally just say, hey, I'm not racist, against anything. However, they're not an actual ally. They're not in the trenches. They're not, doing the protests. They're not, and I'm going to use social media because we all know that, people show their ugly side and their great side on social media, but, they're not the ones who are rebutting against people who have, racist posts or whatnot. They're just kind of in the background. It's good enough for them just to say, hey, I don't share those same views as racist. However, I'm not going to publicly say that, and I'm not going to publicly support. But at home, yeah, I'm great.
Interesting.
It's that same. I think in the lines with what Randy was saying, you have to actively oppose it. To me, it's not being that person that says, well, I'm not racist. I have a black friend or I have a friend that's Jewish. Because to me, anytime somebody says it, I'm like, ding, ding, ding. Here's our first sign that you have some of these tendencies that need to be addressed.
Yeah. Usually that sentence, I'm not a racist, is followed with that big but.
Yeah.
I'm not a racist, but, and that's, you're exactly right. That's a big red flag coming up. I'm just prefacing what I'm about to say. So, Micah, you're on mute.
Sorry. So to add on what the ladies were saying, I think it's just actively opposing, racism. You know what I mean? Just, you actually, like you said, like the lady said, you're defending it versus saying, oh, I'm not a racist. I don't do those things. But you're actively saying and letting people know, no, that is wrong. And you kind of confronting the situation. So I think, that's, kind of where it is for me, where it lies with the anti-racist is you're actively fighting for, you know, equality or equity for everyone. So
Good. Okay. So obviously for the past couple of months, this has been the topic on everyone's minds throughout the country. You know, ever since George Floyd, this has become part of the national consciousness. And there's been a lot of people who might have felt that spark, that they want to maybe be an ally, or they want to start to do more than they have in the past, but they're hesitant, or they're fearful, or they just don't know how to take those first steps. So let me ask the group, are you offended when somebody asks you questions dealing with race?
I am going to be completely transparent, John, and let you know when the George Floyd things first happened and we kind of had that veil that was finally put down and people were actually wanting to listen and learn. I'm going to be honest, part of me did get kind of angry because I was thinking to myself, why should I have to teach you something that you can go out and teach yourself? Why should I have to teach you about what has been happening to Black people when we have been screaming this for years and years and years and years? You just have to open your eyes. So what I finally did, what I usually do, you know, I kind of take a step back when I'm, you know, kind of enthralled in my thoughts and emotions, and said, you know, Randy, this is an actual opportunity. People are actually willing to listen and sit down and have a dialogue with you. I had a friend actually reach out to me via Facebook Messenger and just said, I just need to know what I can do. You know, can you talk to me about this situation? And these are my views, and what are your views? And can we just talk about it? And that was the first time I actually sat with someone of the opposite race and just kind of let it all out. And this is someone who wasn't, I say friend, you know, they're not a close friend. This is someone who wasn't a close friend, but someone who felt comfortable enough to reach out to me and said, I want to be educated. Can you help me? And so I don't think if I still had those same thoughts that I did initially, that I would have came from a place of contribution. However, like I said, once I kind of backpedaled and said, you know, if they really are wanting to learn and absorb what we want to say, then no, at this point, I'm not offended, and I am going to come to a place where, you know, we can have a dialogue and that teachable moment is there.
Oh, Shaylon, looks like you're on mute.
I was sorry about that. So, and for me, I'm never offended. I love to address the elephant in the room. I think it's about the way we approach it. It's kind of, if you need something, you don't go to your parents telling them what you're going to do, or your boss what you're going to do. You come from a place of humility. You come from a place of sincerity, and you ask the questions. And so for me, there's an African proverb that says you have to eat the elephant one bite at a time. This has been a big elephant that has been feasting on all of the negative things that our society puts out. And I think it's time to eat this elephant one bite at a time. And we cannot do it. There's no great movements that have taken place without communication. When I used to teach these diversity classes, I told people all the time, it's going to take effective communication, because I believe even behind the core of racism, if we would have had some effective communication, we could have fought this off to a point. And so when we can put our emotions to the side and actually deal with the issue, because I can't expect you to know about me if I'm not willing to teach you. The storybooks didn't teach you. The elementary experience definitely didn't teach you. The middle school didn't teach you, and some colleges still aren't teaching it. And we're still putting out information, all kinds of negative historical information. I won't even give several examples that will cause people to continue to believe and behave the way they do. So it's going to take these individual, as I call them, live and walk in libraries to change the thoughts and minds of people. And we have to do that from a place of love and understanding, and with effective communication.
I think I couldn't agree more. You know, my experience even here at the city, you know, 10 years ago, we were confronting these issues in our department. And I can remember praying and saying, Lord, how can I serve? How can I help? And I felt like in those moments I was put in the right place at that time. But I think I was just not, I was still not as, I think, mature about the conversations as I was then, and I was very confrontational, and I just wanted to call it what it was, and I wasn't effective. I mean, I marched to City Hall, and I went to the city manager's office, and I said, "This is what's happening, and this is what they're doing," and it backfired. And I realize now, I did not have effective communication. I had a chip on my shoulder, and I just wasn't, I did not serve people well, including myself and others that I was serving, because I was not as mature as I feel like I probably would have a different approach now. And that is of what you just said, understanding, patience, just better effective communication. I think I blew my shot, I guess you would say, in terms of being able to be useful at that time in helping the people that I worked with and that were my peers. But I think it's everything you just said.
I think you brought up a good point, Maria, about like you were so emotionally charged that you just felt like I had to get it all out. I had to go guns a-blazing and let's be heard. And that's kind of, I just want to backpedal to what I was saying initially. When all that happened, I think I was so emotionally charged. I was upset. I was angry. I was scared, for my boys. And all those emotions bottled up, let's couple that with the COVID thing, that was going on, and there was nothing there for me, but left was just to be angry. And like I said, when people were reaching out, hey, can you discuss this? That was my initial reaction, was like, do you not understand how I'm feeling right now? All this is bottled up inside of me, yet you want me to teach you. And like I said, however, when you take a step back and find the value in that moment as a teachable moment, and that comes with growth. Like you said, you had to mature. And if this was me 10 years ago, I probably would have been the same way, Maria, but and you live and you learn, and you understand that this is the moment that we're living in. And if you choose to be on the right side and address it the right way, you will have the right outcome with it.
Yeah, just kind of to just summarize everything that you ladies are saying, which is absolutely on point. I think for me, when the George Floyd happened, I felt like you, Randy. I was so angry, so upset. The thing that I've been living my entire life, now it's just right there on video to see the fears that I've had, the times where I was completely honest with my wife that I didn't want to have a son, just because, like, what if one day he ends up being killed by the police? I had to really have a come to Jesus moment and really just really pray about it. And just a few years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, there were certain things that I couldn't watch because it made me so angry inside. And I was afraid of that anger maybe getting to, someone else that don't even deserve that. So, I had to mature in that area where I had to learn, I had to grow, I had to process my emotions. When the George Floyd thing happened, there's a point in time that I had to have a brief moment of silence where I talked to anyone, and just kind of process my thoughts and really just like I had to go pray. And just get myself together, man. So those are the things that, that really just scared me when I seen that moment. But, now when I look at it, I tell my wife, I want to have those conversations. I want to do these different things because it doesn't offend me for someone, at least you wanting to know. And I think, kind of what you mentioned on Maria, it's about the heart. Once you have that humility, like, how can I help? How can I pour into, or how can I assist in this situation? And just having that humility and that heart, I think that's where it starts at, for me, and that kind of begins the conversation. But all those things that, with the George Floyd, that all brought back just flashes of my own entire life and my son's life and just Black men in general, man. So, those are the things that scares me the most, as a man. So, that's kind of my spill on it. But I totally agree with what you ladies said, though.
So if I can summarize everyone's thoughts on that, yes, if it is okay for somebody, if they have questions, to be able to talk about race, but to do so in a respectful, genuine, authentic way, and to respect the person that they're talking with and their emotions on the topic, and to not treat them like the token Black person in the department who represents the whole race or something like that. But if there is a genuine interest or curiosity that what's been happening throughout the nation has sparked that or opened someone's eyes, and they're genuinely interested in learning more and becoming an ally, yes, definitely, let's reach out and have those conversations. This shouldn't be a taboo topic that we can't discuss in the workplace. We often talk about bringing your whole self to work, and how can you do that if you don't have these conversations? Because that is a huge part of who we are, and it defines us to a large extent. Which brings me to my next question. Do you feel like you can bring your whole self to work, or do you have to leave a part of you at the door? And why or why not?
That's a loaded question.
That's a very loaded question, but I'm going to go ahead and jump in and say no. I would love to bring my whole self to work. I would love to be open. I would love to be able to be at some points in time exposed and vulnerable, but that vulnerability opens the door for pain. It opens it for hurt. It opens it for a possibility of loss of job, because once you get hurt, it's harder to control your emotions and things like that. For example, I'll identify that I am a licensed ordained minister, but I can't bring that to church, because if from church to work, because sometimes some people may be offended. I feel like we can claim to be all kinds from all walks of life, but the moment I say that I'm a Christian, and then I'm an African American Christian, then people automatically start tensing up, as if I'm going to go and try to share and get them to convert immediately. And when in actuality, I'm just excited about who I am and what I love to do and who I serve. And so if in actuality, if people really knew, that is a very important part of me, and it helps me to do my job even more effectively because I'm grounded. And so I don't think that we can bring our whole selves to work. I can't anyway. Can't speak for everybody. And then there's parts of my culture that I can't bring. I'm also a single mother, and so I can't bring all of those issues to work, because of, I have a job that I have expectations that I'm supposed to meet, a job I'm supposed to complete, and sometimes I feel like I can't bring those issues. I have wonderful understanding supervisors, but sometimes you just don't want to boggle people down, and so a lot of times we just kind of close ourselves out to a certain point.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I cannot bring my whole self to work. I always have this joke with my wife. It's one way. It's professional Micah, and then it's Micah outside of work. So I always tell my wife, I think one day after work, I was going to a football game with one of my coworkers or some one of our church friends. But at that point, I had on like slacks and a button-up shirt, and then I went and changed, and I had on a fitted hat. I had on jeans, I had on sneakers. So I always that's urban Micah. And I had a coworker that's like, "Oh, Micah, I didn't know that was you." So I say that I can't bring my whole self to work, because there are things about just my race, my culture, that people may not accept, that makes them feel uncomfortable, or the fact that, again, I'm a Christian as well, and I am excited about what I do and what I believe. So, it's those things like that. It makes you vulnerable, but it is also like you want to close that door because you don't want to get hurt. You don't want to be, oh, he's just this or he's just that, or, I didn't think Micah was like this, kind of thing. So you kind of have to, that whole code switching thing, making sure I am professional Micah at work. I am who I am. It's still who I am. It is still me, but I can, I can't be the same way that I am outside of that, so, those are kind of the fence that you play around with there, and you don't want to get hurt by it, or vulnerable and disappoint someone or yourself, so definitely.
So Randy, I saw you nodding at that professional Micah. And
well, it's funny because my kids always know when I'm on a work call or when I'm on a call with my sisters, because they say your tone and your voice changes, and I get that, and I think being a Black woman, it's easy for that notion to be conceived very quickly. If I speak a certain way, if my tone rises a certain octave, that I'm immediately angry, I'm upset, and I don't have the same luxury as my counterparts who are not Black. And so I do have to tailor myself a different way. And I feel that like I do have to turn the switch on when I walk in the door. A lot of the times in the morning, I'm on the phone with my sisters on the way to work. And then once I hang up with them, I turn the switch and here's professional Randy walking in, and they even make fun of me. So I don't feel like I can bring my true self. I mean, my personality is still the same, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I just feel like, how I am when I'm at home comfortable is not how I am when I'm at work.
Those added filters that have to be put in place.
Exactly.
Whereas, a white person might be described as passionate or energetic, you get described as the angry Black woman.
Exactly.
I'm so glad that you brought up that point. Just kind of having to be sure, kind of what you just said, John. If I'm passionate about my work, it's considered a totally different thing. Now people are getting scared. Mike is being aggressive, and you're being labeled that aggressive Black guy. Versus if my counterpart does that, oh, he's just passionate about what he does. And just making sure that, that there are always just people in the room that I have to watch. If I'm angry about something, I can't just go and send an email. I can't say anything about it. I have to take a moment. Okay, Micah, how's this going to sound when it comes out of your mouth? Because the way that you say it and the way that what your heart is saying is going to be taken totally different. So I have to be mindful of the way I said it, of the way I say it. And in the moment, I have to go and just sometimes you just kind of swallow your pride, and I have to go over there and have my come to Jesus moment. Am I saying this the right way? So that it's not perceived that way, because I don't want to come off as angry, and I'm not angry or anything like that, but my face could say something totally different. We always have this joke with my wife, and she always nudge me like, fix your face, fix your face. And I'm like, what is wrong with my face?
So your
but
face needs deliverance is what I'm hearing.
Yes. So she said, I just have a frown, and it's not, and I could be thinking, and your driving face, you're just thinking, and it's just kind of like my face, the kind of thing that I do. So she's always, fix your face, which I understand what she's saying. You don't want to be perceived or make people nervous that you have this scrounge in your face. I can't say anything to him, or I can't sit by him. He's angry right now. But I was just like, I can't walk around and just plaster a stupid grin on my face either. So I just got to find that balance, but definitely don't want to come off the wrong way.
And it's funny that you mentioned that, because I have my thinking face is kind of a scowl. And I remember I was walking down the hall at work, and somebody approached me and said, "Hey, John, are you okay?" And it kind of took me back, like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm just thinking through something. Like, okay, you just looked angry. But the fact that they gave me that benefit of the doubt, rather than just assuming like, oh man, he's an angry guy, that's a privilege. Maria, did you have any comment on that, or?
No, I I don't feel like I can. I used to, and for yeah, I used to. I used to feel like I could, and I used to be unfiltered in terms of bringing my whole self to work. And I think you can in some places, and you can and can't in some. I think it's a matter of trust and the people you're surrounded with. You know, I have worked alongside people who embraced differences and didn't consider people weak if they lost their temper, or if they cried, or if they were emotional, or if they were. I've always thought of it as, you know, there were some people I've worked with that we've always kind of had this notion that I think it takes a stronger person to be who you are than that person who doesn't cry at work. I've always felt like it's a stronger person who has that ability to say, this is who I am, and I'm going to respond this is how it is. And to me, I've always appreciated that and respected that, but I do acknowledge that we're not always surrounded by people who embrace things similarly. And so I've had to dial back, bringing my whole self to work. And it's taken a number of years to do that. And it does feel like you're compromising, and you're not really being your true self, and it's hard. Like you're saying, you know, as soon as you walk in the door, it's hard. It's hard being that person. But no, I don't think I can. Because I did try, and yeah.
That's a very valid point, though. It kind of reminds me of the dating scene, that you project, this is who I am, and then once you really get to know the person, then you drop all that, and they get to see the real you. And that definitely ebbs and flows in the workplace with those relationships of trust that we build with people. They see more of the real us versus others, for sure. You know, I've worked on teams where we've had that in spades, and we're able to have tremendous conflict with each other, but it's all productive conflict. And then there are others where that wall is certainly up, and it's just a professional interaction. So one of the reasons why I think this is so important is it helps people understand that, hey, my experiences aren't the same as everybody else's experiences. And when people do share their experiences, it opens people's eyes up to, hey, there's more out there than I understand, or others are experiencing things that I don't experience, and maybe there is something to this. And so if you feel comfortable and would like to share, what is one way that you've been stereotyped?
We just need to share one.
I've been stereotyped as the hot-headed Puerto Rican.
Hot-headed Puerto Rican.
Hot-headed Puerto Rican, and it's hard to get over. Just because you're passionate about something, it's not, you know, or you are willing to say what you think and be candid. It's just so easy for people to brush you off and judge you and put you in categorize you and pocket you and just leave it at that. It's something you have to overcome. Sorry.
I think for me, so this was when I was still working in customer service. I had just recently started at the city of Denton. I was out by the door just taking a 15-minute break just to get some fresh air. You want to get out of the office just to get some fresh air. And I had not a coworker, but a city employee, you know, approach me and ask me like, hey, do you need help with anything? And I'm looking like, no, I don't need help with anything. And you know, she kind of asking in like, do you need help with anything? I was like, no, I don't need help with anything. And I pulled out my badge. I'm like, I work here. But just the tone in which she used it, I can tell that she was asking more than if I needed help. Like, why are you hanging out around this door? And she couldn't see my badge. She couldn't see there again. I bring up the urban Micah versus professional Micah. I just had on a t-shirt and some jeans. I had just started, you know, at the city of Denton. and this was our casual jean day that we usually have in customer service. But in the tone in which she was asking me, I think she was asking like, what are you doing hanging around here? What are you doing here at this door? Why are you here? Kind of thing. So once I, and very sarcastically, I was like, hey, I work here, and showed her my badge. And then she began to backpedal like, no, I didn't mean it that way. I was just like, I didn't say anything. I just said I work here, and so I feel, and I was just like, wow, this is an employee of the city. So, this is what she think of guys that look like me. So.
I don't think mine is more of the one I'm going to share is more of a stereotype, but when I first came over to Animal Services in a management position, we were having a meeting with a potential partnership, and it was me and one of the other supervisors who are here. And of course, my name is Randy. Sometimes if you don't talk to me, you automatically assume that I'm going to be a guy. When you first meet me, that's fine. But what isn't okay is when we come into a meeting, I come in, sit down, introduce myself, you make a blatant statement, oh, I thought you were going to be a guy. That's great, we laugh about it. But then you tend to talk to the other person, even though I introduced myself. I'm the one who asked for the meeting. The discussion is coming through me, and you won't even look me in my eye, but you look at my male counterpart in the eye, and you are continually asking the questions through him to me. And that was one of the, like Micah says, you have your urban Randy and you have your professional Randy, where I almost had to take it down and finally just be very stern and say, hey, if you're going to ask a question, you can go ahead and ask it directly to me. And at that point, it was a shift for him. And this was a white male, older, probably mid 50s, to say, hey, maybe I do need to be giving her the respect that she needs. But to me, walking away from that, the supervisor who was in the room with me, he felt it. He knew what was going on. He kept trying to direct him to ask the questions to me, and the guy just wasn't having it. So for me, and this is kind of rolls into something else, being in a management position, where I am in an industry where you don't really have very many Black women who are in this position, it can be very difficult to gain that respect. And you almost feel like you have to work 10 times harder in order to make that name for yourself. You know what you bring to the table. I know what I bring to the table. But it's almost like you have to come in almost with a chip on your shoulder and say, hey, no, I'm supposed to be here. This is why I'm here. And you're going to give me the respect that I need because I'm giving you the respect that you need. So,
where my chip comes from is that judgmental creeping into my head that goes, well, why didn't he speak up for you? And that's where I find myself getting worked up when I hear you even say, well, even your counterpart saw it and but still perpetuated or let it, versus saying to him, hey, you know what, she's the boss here. She's, you need to speak to her. She called this meeting. And so I find myself sometimes getting wrapped up in, and focusing on maybe even the wrong things. But I think to myself, how cool would it have been if that person would have, if we were in a place of work where everybody felt like they could just, point out the elephant in the room.
And he did, and just like he did try and redirect, but at the same time, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, okay, here we go. You're about to have to handle this, and that's I handled it. So.
And I think that's part of the journey that we're on, especially like we talked about the anti-racist thing. Is we as an organization, as a community, definitely need to get better at that, and let's start taking those steps from saying, oh, let's just everyone don't talk about it at all, to no, we need to start talking about this, to we need to start standing up for this, and hopefully we can all learn, grow, get the tools, get the skill set to be able to start that process. because it would be a bit much to demand that from everybody and say, night to day, okay, everyone, we're going to do this.
Yeah, and you can't, and I think we can't, because there is still that underlying notion, fact, feeling that people are still self-serving. No one's perfect. I'm a Christian too. There's only one perfect in this world. We don't, that's considered an off-limits word in our house, kind of a thing. So so I'm not saying I'm not self-serving. I'm saying everybody has some degree of self-serving, and so there's always that hesitation, and those moments that don't come to the surface because everybody is sitting in their head thinking, how will this impact me and my role in this organization if I either agree, or if I speak up, or if I even acknowledge, injustices that take place, because everybody is watching out to some degree for themselves. You can't brush that off. It's human nature, but that's where that underlying fear of trusting people comes in, because you just know that exists.
And John, that kind of, you had made a statement, about people having almost the courage to stand up, or knowing that it's okay, and you can stand up in a professional way. But what that started getting me to thinking is about the MLM classes that we have, and how it was instilled during that class that we have a license to lead. And I think we can also take that away, that we have a license to lead, and that can be translated into, we have a license to have courage and stand up. You can do it in a professional way.
Sure.
You don't have to come in with, an attitude, ready to knock out someone, but you can do it in a professional way that will get the point across to that person, like, hey, we're not going to stand up for this. And I'm supporting my coworker as well. So that just
and I think that
when you said that,
I think that's where in terms of being a public servant, I think that's where 10 years ago I failed when in situations where for myself and for my peers and for the public impacted by certain behaviors. I feel like that's where I failed, because I felt like I was too young and didn't have the knowledge or the wisdom that I have now to lead by example, I guess you would say. Yeah.
No, I'm really glad that you brought that up, because that idea of license to lead, this is a personal responsibility that we each have, not only to ourselves, but to each other. And, we don't want anybody to have to wake up in the morning dreading having to come to work, because what are they going to say today? What are they going to do today? What am I going to have to put up with today? We want everyone to look forward to coming to work, because it is an awesome environment, and that only happens when people feel safe to be themselves and trust their team that everyone has each other's backs. And that doesn't just happen. That takes a lot of work from everybody, and everyone has to be invested in that. The one bad apple can definitely ruin the bunch. But if everyone else can provide that peer pressure, for lack of a better term, to say, hey, we don't tolerate that kind of behavior here. That's not who we are. That's when we know we've turned a corner.
Yeah.
And I think it's just like you said, standing up and taking that lead. And to Randy's point, it's always a right way to do it. You know what I mean? But it's also important that you actually speak up as well. And I always like to have this saying, like, I love you on your bad day while we at work, because we spend more time together than sometimes with our families. I love you on your bad day. Love me on my bad day. And I think that's part of the process of going through those trenches and understanding, and we all taking a role in this. Like, okay, some days I'm not gonna have my all. Some days you're not gonna have your all. But hey, I still respect you enough, and okay, I'm gonna give you your space, and we still can have a conversation about it. But just understanding each other and just having that empathy towards one another, and understanding, like, okay, man, like, Micah's not on today,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but I still respect it. I know what kind of person he is, so I think that kind of goes a long way.
I tell my kids, you can't take it with you when you die. That's the way I see it. And so for me, it is a matter of the heart, because your spirit is what goes with you. And for me and my faith, it's what the good Lord is wanting to see me foster is that love and kindness, and just, but if you can't take it with you when you die, it's not worth it. And so I feel like that's kind of gauges for me my investment in people and in the people that I work with, versus those materialistic things.
And I'll tell you, from an HR perspective, having worked in employee relations for many years, very rarely, by the time an issue gets to HR and we're investigating it, very rarely is it a complete surprise. More often than not, it's kind of a worst kept secret that everyone knew so-and-so was doing this, or this happened. It was tolerated. If we can get to that point again where we're watching out for each other's backs and we don't tolerate the bad behavior, everyone starts to feel safe, and those issues stop before they even start. So, Shaylon, I wanted to give you the opportunity to chime in here.
I've had several, but I think most of mine, John, come from being younger. Usually I'm in an environment where I'm the youngest. I think this is the first time I haven't been the youngest in my whole 47 years of life. We're in the workplace. And so when I was a director at my former institution, I would walk into a room and they would be looking for the director. And I'm thinking, who are we looking for? I'm here. And just like Randy, I would go out to meet with investors and stakeholders, and they would be constantly shocked about my age, or go into a meeting where I'm the only one, or get invited to the president's meeting where I don't belong because I was a director, not a president or a vice president, but I'm the only one. And so, but because the perspective opened doors for me, your gift will make room for you. So I was able to go into places where I didn't belong according to standard. And so I would look like, what is she doing here? And so for me, those would be my stereotypical moments where people are like, okay. And then I'm very quiet until, like, my friends, like, y'all get to know me, and then I don't stop talking. So it's kind of like, what is she like? She doesn't even have anything to bring to the conversation. And it's usually because I'm a sponge. I'm trying to soak it all up, and then I process, and then I'll give you feedback, because I need to be, since I know you don't think I belong here, I need to be very careful at what information I decide to release.
Right. I think according to studies, it takes only about 6 to 7 seconds for people to form a prejudice, just based, judging the book by its cover. And that's just human nature. I mean, that's just cognitive science, that in order to function, our brain has to create shortcuts. Yes. It helps us survive, but it also can create pitfalls for us. These assumptions, these prejudices form over time that influence our behavior and how we interact with each other. I love the fact that just to look at me, people don't know that I speak Spanish. I lived in Argentina for a couple of years, and I got my undergrad in Spanish. And so, on more than one occasion, people start talking, and like you, Shaylon, I just kind of sit back and I'm taking it all in. But you got to be careful about those assumptions, because we don't know who's going to be listening. So, last question for today's panel. What can people do if they want to help fight racism? And I know that, we're asking you to solve the world's problems in one answer, but just off the top of your head, what is something big, small, that people can at least start to do that would be beneficial to start fighting racism?
I think for me, it kind of starts with the moral compass, just having a heart for your fellow man, just that humanity. for someone else, and just understanding that, you know, sometimes your walk is different from their walk, and they may face different things because they look a certain way. I think that once we start understanding, like, hey, they go through different situations, but it's a different outcome than what I go through, and just having that empathy and just trying to understand, walking in their shoes for once and seeing that is like. And I just think that just continuously asking those questions, and just being that anti-racist and challenging those who make derogatory statements, or those people who are doing certain things that oppress or prejudge someone else, and just kind of speaking up for it. And there's something that I read the other day about, I forgot where it was, but it was just talking about, you know, you can do all kind of certain things. You can get with close friends, and you can have those conversations and just talk through certain things, or you can host a dinner or host a Skype meeting where you kind of talk out with someone that's the opposite race of you, and just kind of have that dialogue and just begin to just talk about it and understand and have that empathy for one another. I think it's just, you know, we all kind of go back to the cliche. It's a matter of the heart, man. And it's just, you know, having that humanity for people. So that's kind of where I am with it. So.
Okay.
I think for me, you need to the first step is to look inside of yourself and ask yourself, why do I think a certain way when I look at this person, or when I hear this type of music, why do I say it's only for, X, Y, and Z, and start asking yourself first. And then at that point, once you have that realization that you might have some, what we call inherent biases or whatnot, then that's at the point where you kind of need to find your way. Okay, who can I reach out to? What resources do I have to better educate myself on what I'm experiencing? But first, the want has to be there. We can talk till we are blue in the face to someone, and unless that want is there to actually change and listen and take in what someone is trying to say to you, you would continue on that same path. So for me, I think it's just a simple step is to look inside yourself, and then if that want is really there, reach out, find those resources, and then go from there. I think that's the first step.
Excellent.
I also think that with social media these days, and all of these wonderful books that you all have been talking about as you write on our workplace, that the resources are phenomenal. And there's such a vast majority of them that if you need to do some soul searching first to make sure this is something, because this is, at church, we say you have to do the deeper work. This road to becoming an ally is definitely not an easy road by any means. It is imperative by all means that you have a made up mind, you have that desire that Randy talked about, and that you're willing to go the road. Because I've seen it where some of my Caucasian colleagues, their families have turned their back on them because they have now a new thought process. They want to become an ally. And then not even just those people who they live with, but also their coworkers, because these are the same people that you may have, let something slide or joined in with or cracked the joke, or even maybe been the carrier of that bone. And so first, do some research. After you do your soul search and do the deeper work, then do a little bit of research, and then find that person, because you've worked with these people for a while. You've seen them in these different areas of your life, and find the right person to talk to, because you can't go to everybody saying, oh, hey, guess what? I had a change of heart, because everybody, as Randy said, some of us are still in that place of anger. There's a lot of things going on in the world, so you got to find the right person. And then finally, take advantage of the avenues and do the small work. When somebody comes to you with a racist joke, sorry, we can't do that here. I used to do a diversity presentation, and I would have people stare at these black dots on a white page for just 30 seconds and tell me, what do you think happens? Eventually, the black dots start fading into the white paper, and you start seeing gray. There's nothing really black and white in this world that we live in anymore. And so we have to be able to understand that from a deeper perspective, and understand that that grayscale, as you teach on, John, that's one of those lenses. And so how do you deal with that in that area, and understand that that person is going to be doing a different type of work? So do I think people can become allies, and do I want people to become allies? Absolutely. But I think it's more than just saying, oh, I had a change of heart. And then after you do all of that work, then you have to join in on the front lines. You have to be able to be that ally in the boardroom, be that ally in the protests, be that ally on your social media, and be that ally most of all in your family, because one person can change a whole family if you do it the right way.
You know, it's an interesting, you know, I have had experiences in my life, but I know that that is just a microcosm of what others live their entire lives with. And, you know, Brene Brown says, not addressing an issue or not wanting to talk about an issue because it makes you feel uncomfortable is the definition of privilege. You know, the fact that people can opt out of the conversation because they don't live it is a privilege. You know, that's worth noting, that if people want to fight racism, yes, they have to want to open their eyes, but that's just the first step, like Randy said. And like Micah said, engaging in that empathy, feeling with another person, and understanding that you might never understand completely because you don't live those experiences day in and day out, but what can they do to help? I guess that's where we'll land with that. But is there anything else anyone would like to say before we close out this employee panel? Any other additional thoughts that y'all have? Okay. Well, I can't thank you each enough for your perspective, for being vulnerable with us. These are difficult conversations, and they are difficult primarily because we've never really done this before. And I'm encouraged and eternally grateful that people like you are willing to be vulnerable with the rest of us and share your experiences, because it is through these shared experiences that we can start to understand, respect, and gain empathy. And it's my belief that once that foundation is laid, we can work forward to improve our culture for everybody. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your perspectives. I really do appreciate it. And we'll continue this discussion. So
awesome.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.